You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Join Steve and his guests every week as he staggers from Georgia to Maine.
Hi, and welcome back to the show. My name's Steve Adams, my trail name is Mighty Blue, and this is episode number 106 of Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail. Now, as many of you know, this is the second to last episode of the show in its current format. This podcast is being released 1 week prior to me leaving for Europe to hike the Camino de Santiago in Spain. In fact, next week's show, which will be coming out on the day of my flight to England, is going to be with Deanna McGregor on her recollections of the Camino de Santiago. Deanna is also the woman who moderates Dix's Homemade Wanderlust Facebook page, and she's had her work cut out recently with some unnecessary comments on that page. You just love social media. My episodes come out on a Thursday, so the episode for October the 11th will be my first from the Camino. There'll be different music, but it will still be a Hiking Radio Network show, and it will still appear as Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail. So, wherever you found this show, you'll find it again at the usual time and in the usual place. I'm considering doing 2 shows a week, with the second released on a Monday morning, so you should watch out for that as well. All the shows on the Hiking Radio Network are announced on the Hiking Radio Network Facebook page, so head over there and like it. Lastly, I'll be doing a bunch of Facebook live streams, so you'll also be able to keep up with those. Once I finish the trail, I'll be travelling around Europe and writing, and hopefully publishing, a couple of books before returning to the US to hike the AT for a second time. Consequently, from about mid-November, the show will be back to its old self, with the current format once more. As a bit of a teaser, I already have recorded interviews with Stephanie Lorenz, or Sunshine, and Dave Portman, or Seabiscuit, who both did the AT this year, along with a great interview with Darwin, or Darwin on the Trail. All of that will be coming in November. After all of that preamble, let's get on with the show. I heard about Tenny Ostrem and Claire Wernstedt-Lynch from a listener, and when I read about them, I was immediately hooked. Speaking to them did nothing to change that view. They are an utter delight. The two of them met on the AT a couple of years back, and they became great friends. They were thinking of doing another long hike last year, but decided instead to combine a love of learning with a hike. I didn't even know there was such a trail, and there kind of isn't. But Tenny and Claire, in May this year, completed the border walk from San Diego, California in the west to the Gulf of Mexico at Brownsville, Texas in the east. Their blog about their journey is enthralling, and I'll be leaving a link to it in the show notes. I'm not going to tell you anything else about it, but we'll leave it for the two women to recount their story. By the way, I totally screwed up the recording in the first place by not pressing the record button at the start. That meant starting again. I think we're about 5 minutes into it. It all worked out. Do you know what? I'd be really dangerous if I was smart. Here's Tenny and Claire. And for the third time of asking, this is a conversation between me and two very young, very patient young ladies called Tenny Ostrem and Claire Wernstedt-Lynch. Hi, ladies. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having us.
This is the third time I've introduced them because this latest time I didn't press the record button. We were speaking for about 4 or 5 minutes before I realised I hadn't recorded. It's good to know that we're actually recording now. So good to have you on the show yet again. And we're going to talk about something. My pleasure. We're going to talk about something which is kind of really. Literally off the wall in many ways, and really interesting. And I was put onto these two young ladies by a listener of the show, I believe it was. But the two of them have both hiked the Appalachian Trail, so that's this tenuous association with the AT, obviously. But tell us how the two of you met. It obviously was on the Appalachian Trail. And tell us why the two of you took to each other and have become firm friends ever since and hiking partners.
Yeah, so Claire and I met on the Appalachian Trail, like you just said. We both decided to start in the winter months, so kind of January, early February. And I actually met Claire about 3 weeks in. I was coming into the Nantahala Outdoor Center and stayed at the women's dormitory there. And Claire was already there.
You were grateful to be out of the weather, I presume, at the
Yes,
time, weren't you?
yes,
Starting in
so
January.
grateful. Yeah. And in those first couple of weeks, I think there was mostly kind of like ice and a dusting of snow. So it wasn't too terrible yet. The majority of the snow came in the following weeks when I actually started hiking with Claire after I'd met her at the Nantahala Outdoor Center. And she was the first woman I saw on the trail. I had seen a couple guys and started hiking with them on and off, but was really overjoyed to find Claire. And then we all, including those guys, kind of started or formed this group that really helped support each other through those hard months.
Yeah, you definitely need support, don't you? Don't you think so? When you're on the trail, to be hiking with, especially when the trail is in quite perilous condition, to be hiking with other people is a real reassurance, don't you think?
Absolutely. It was, I think I definitely underestimated the severity of the winter conditions and soon realized that I absolutely needed a group just for safety, to be reasonable.
Yeah, it's funny because Tenny and I think we both started so early because we were hoping to avoid crowds and people and have more of a wilderness experience. And then the people ended up being by far the most important part of the hike.
That's interesting. You didn't know that before. Was this your first, respectively, your first long distance hikes?
For me, it was definitely. It was the first long distance trail I had done right after college. Yeah, first one.
And so many people come to the trail believing they want the wilderness experience and the solitude of it, but nearly everybody, in fact, literally everybody I've ever spoken to on this podcast, and we're over 100 episodes strong right now, have said that it's the community of people on there that really, really makes the difference and really makes the hike. Did you both feel that now that you've both finished?
Yeah, absolutely. My first trail was the Colorado Trail, and I did it midway through college, and did it exactly for that reason, to get the wilderness experience. And I now have some of the best friends in my life from that trail. And then I've done a trail, long distance trail every year since then, and probably have one friend from each of those that I will know the rest of my life. So yeah, very much about community. And now that we've finished this border trail, I believe in Claire more than like anyone in my life. So
it's so powerful, such a powerful thing. It's such a bonding experience that it's almost inexplicable why it's such a bonding experience. And I'm not terribly sure I've got the answer. Do either of you ladies think you have an idea why this is? Is it the shared experience and over such a long period of time?
I think it's about something about I think there's many reasons. I think there's something about the fact that it brings together this diverse group of people in terms of life experiences, people that you wouldn't necessarily have, like life wouldn't naturally bring you together.
Sure.
And so you find this other thing to connect on. And I think I don't know, the other things, like what your job is and what your income level is and what your, where you grew up, they matter less on the trail. And so you find other ways to connect, and those things matter. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it needs to, it can be as inexplicable as it needs to be. I just know that with everybody, you connect so much more strongly in some of these circumstances than you ever would in so-called real life. And let's just celebrate that as a wonderful thing.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, and I'll just add one thing to that. That's I feel like a trail is really like a safe space. And so
yes.
Like Claire's saying, so many people can come to it and get something out of it and enjoy each other and be from any background. And that's been like maybe one of the single most transformative pieces in my life, is just to have a safe space where you're guaranteed to be cared about by every single person that surrounds you.
Yeah, it's funny. I've mentioned this before on the show. I really think there's this shared experience and this shared goal, particularly for the through hikers. I mean, you meet day hikers and it's great to meet them as well. When you're all heading the same way and you've all got 4 or 5, 6 months ahead of you, then you find that people on the trail want your success almost as much as they want their own, and that certainly doesn't exist in real life. And I think that was a wonderful thing for me to discover when I was out there as well.
Well, and I also find that it's not just the hikers; it's also the towns you come into and the people you meet. There's something about seeing someone on a walk that people want to be involved in. They want to be generous to you. They want to help you out, and it's like this really positive way to sort of see the best of humankind. I think.
Yeah. Now let's move on to this border walk. Firstly, with all the various amazing trails you've already mentioned. The CDT, and you've mentioned the Colorado Trail, and you've mentioned we've mentioned the AT. Obviously, there are tons of trails that one would think of a long distance trail in America. Walking the southern border, would not normally be one of them, would it? So, how did that come up as a potential hike for the two of you?
Well, we had actually both been planning to hike the Continental Divide Trail last year. It was something we wanted to do together for a while, and so we'd been discussing it and planning it, and Tenny texted me one day at work and asked if I wanted instead to hike the U.S.-Mexico border. And the reason behind that, I think, was we both felt like we were looking for a way to engage with our communities and engage with our country rather than detach, which is what you often do when you go on a hike.
Yeah, that's interesting because. So, how do you put that in a text? She just said to you, "Hey Claire, how instead of doing the CDT, let's walk along the U.S. Mexico border." Did she give any reason behind it?
Well, it'd be something we'd been talking about a lot. Is sort of figuring out how to do the Colorado Trail and if it was the right time to do it with everything that was going on in our country, and so it wasn't coming out of nowhere, but. Right. The idea, the actual idea certainly was coming out of nowhere for me at first.
So where'd that idea come from then Tenny?
Good question. Yeah, I mean, kind of like just building off of what Claire said, just probably a need to do a trail, absolutely, but also one that you could combine an issue or something that we didn't feel like we understood that our country was talking about, and definitely in an area that we didn't know much about before. So I've spent some time in Arizona. My grandpa's from there, my dad's from there, but the rest of my family all are from kind of the mid-states. And I have not spent much time on the border, and same for Claire, I think. And so it felt like that was where we should go. Yeah.
It's certainly something that is topical at the moment. And so what was as a hike itself, what was the mileage of this hike?
Well, it's kind of up in the air. The actual distance of the border is around 1,950 or so miles, depending on who you're talking to.
Right.
But obviously, we weren't walking every single curve in the Rio Grande, and we were going up and around to get over places. So we were adding miles here, taking miles away there. So I'd say somewhere between 1,800 miles and 2,000 miles.
Wow. How long did it take you to do it then?
5.5 months. 6 months. 6 months.
Yeah, 175 days.
Wow, quite a lot then, yeah. So anyway, you decided to go ahead and do it. And I read several sections of your blog. I didn't have a chance to read it all. I know that you were concerned with your safety. That seemed to come up several times in the various blog entries. Was your main initial concern your personal safety?
Absolutely. Our concern, and also our family and friends' concern.
I'm sure.
Yes, everyone in our life. Yeah, even maybe. Well, yeah, all of us. Yeah, I mean, according to what you hear on news often, it was really easy to think of the border as kind of a war zone or this violent area that's in turmoil, and I definitely had quite a few people that felt like we might be kidnapped and held for ransom, and that and yeah, that's a really hard thing to hear, and a hard thing to disagree with, a hard thing to go against because uh, anything is anything can happen anywhere really. But also there's always the potential in that area too, and it was just um, yeah, that's it was hard. That was a hard thing to grapple with.
Yeah, I think anytime you don't know something about an area, it's scary to you. I
Sure.
mean, think about the Appalachian Trail. There's plenty of people who are scared to go on that, and it's there's a book that tells you every single mile what it looks like, and
Yes.
whole communities to help you along the way, and it's still scary to embark on something you don't know about. So the border is for a lot of people just a complete question mark.
How did these relatively, I presume, in fact, universally negative voices hit your ears? Did you take on what people were saying, or did you prepare in some way to counter some of those conversations, or did you feel this was a socially aware thing you were doing, and you wanted to make sure that you did it on your terms?
Yeah, I mean the voices are certainly they're difficult um to hear because they're people that we care about and love and who care about and love us. So it's not like these are people who we don't respect and admire.
Sure.
And I think, especially as women, it's easy to find the ways in which you can be afraid to do something and to not know if you're being naive or foolish going into a situation that you're not prepared for. And it's really hard to ignore those voices. But the experiences that Tenny and I have both had in our lives so far have taught us too that there are good people out there and that we do have capabilities and that we are do have a skill set and that we are um, able to do things. And so you kind of just have to trust that to some point and just trust that what you're doing and that
Sure. Sure.
you have the skill set to help yourself through a rough situation.
How were the two of you then able to structure the hike? Because there's no guidebook, I presume, for the border fence. Or did you simply give yourself certain parameters before you started? What was the planning involved? It's difficult for me to understand how you would plan a hike like that.
Yeah, I'll just add one thing on to Claire's last part too, because it plays into the question you just asked. Also, one of the first things that we started to do to help kind of tamp some of our fears was reach out to some of the organizations that were on the border,
Right.
and those were organizations that worked with immigration organizations that had med centers set up immediately on the border for people who were crossing north.
Right.
Those were organizations who we did a water drop with. And those organizations were the first people that we started talking to who actually interacted with the border on a daily basis and were often located right on the border. And talking to those people, we probably contacted maybe 25 people, had maybe 20, 15, probably 20 people contacted us back. And those were the first people that we really started talking to that were like, oh yeah, oh, you'll be fine. You can absolutely do this. And they were some of the first to start giving us kind of a feel for the physical landscape, the
Right.
topography, what the private property versus public property looked like, the remoteness, how often there were towns. So they really started helping with us with logistics, which is when right about at the same time, Claire and I were just dedicating every hour of the day to logistics, to figuring
Right.
out our exact route, to figuring out maps, to figuring out resupply, hotels, you name it.
Yes, I'm sure. So
Yeah.
so you would resupply from towns. What about water? Because you had quite a few, quite a lot of distance between some of the towns, didn't you?
We did. Strangely enough, we actually only ended up using maybe 5 to 10 natural water sources over the whole course of this,
Wow.
6-month
Really?
trip. Most of our resupply was from gas stations, from towns, from wells on ranchers' property, from cow troughs. So there is water to be found. It is very challenging to find, but the border it attracts a lot of development. So most people move north-south on the border, and there's a lot of desert to walk through. But
Yeah.
if you're going west-east, which is the direction we were going in, there are a surprising amount of human development along that border, because it's been such an important area for so long.
Sure. Did you see any other hikers when you were out there, or were they just day or any day hikers, or were you the only hikers out there?
Yeah, we probably could count the number of hikers we saw. No, I mean, like Claire's talking about, we went through a lot of the little towns, and so there were a lot of pedestrian hikers, which also made us feel really good, even if we had kind of maybe a little more of a long-term hiking goal, and they had a day-to-day
Yes. Yeah.
hiking kind of deal going on. But it was still neat to be on sidewalks and be walking with someone else. It did make us feel a little more comfortable, because often no one else was hiking in those more remote areas, or on a highway. We had to walk along the highway a lot, and in those areas in particular, we were definitely a spectacle. A lot of people did not know what we were doing, and we were an eyesore.
I was going to say that. What did people make, that you met, what they make of the two of you, and were the reactions towards you what you've been expecting?
Well, I guess anytime anyone saw us, they always wanted to know. The first question is, "What are you doing out here?" Because it's not a place that would naturally attract a backpacker. There's no trail there. There's no reason to be there. So they always wanted to know what we were doing, and they also always felt like that we had a political mission being there. Like, they wanted to know what we were standing for, because it is sort of a highly contested area, and people assume that if you're out there, you're making a statement.
Mm-hmm.
And we were very careful. That was not our goal going in, to make a political statement. We wanted to have a positive interaction with everyone we met. That was our political statement.
Yes.
And so we tried to take people for who they were, and make it, they were all almost always generous and kind, and wanting to help out, and wanting to make sure we were okay, which was, I guess, the reaction we were hoping for. And what our other trails have told us to expect is that people like to help out when they can, and that's what we found overwhelmingly.
Amazing kindness.
Yeah, they were kind of our trail angels, but very spontaneous, rather than set up at a station somewhere along the trail. So we had people who would give us water bottles. They would give us at the campgrounds, a lot of campgrounds we passed through, they gave us Sprite or this or that. One lady pulled over and gave us a box of tacos. And all of these, like we're saying, they weren't pre-planned. They were definitely spontaneous, spur of the moment, trail angel kind of moments.
That's real trail angels. That's real trail magic. That's real trail magic, isn't it? Yeah. So one thing that I read in your blog, and I was really touched about this when you were describing the meetings that people have where they're on both sides of the border. They talk through the fence. So, and I'd imagine that had quite an impact upon you as well, because you actually were present when some of this was going on, weren't you? Talk to that.
Yeah. So we walked pretty in close proximity to the border often. The time that you're talking about was actually our first day on the border. Yeah, and at Friendship Park. And it was probably one of the most special moments of the whole trip, which was lucky and fortunate that it was on the first day, because it really gave us a lot of momentum for the rest of the trail.
Yeah.
But in that moment, there is this park where on, I think it was a Sunday, they open this shared space that is only open between 10 and 12, and it's this chance for
10 and 2.
10 and 2, sorry, thank you. 10 and 2, and it's this chance for people in Mexico and people in the States to talk to each other. And it was so special. It was where we met the founder of Border Angels, and he's been working with border issues his entire life, and is one of the most charismatic people I've probably met. And he facilitated this whole event. And it was beautiful. It was really beautiful to see the two countries and people from the both countries to be talking and laughing and enjoying each other.
At the
I'm
same time, though,
sure.
there is a pretty thick fence separating the park in half, which is very difficult to see through. So you're kind of peering through this really tightly interlocked mesh
Right.
fence that you can kind of just get a little tiny eye hole through to see to the other side. So it is a little disorienting because you can hear them, but you can't necessarily see them, or that you see their face and it's bisected by all these lines of the fence.
Oh dear me, that was quite something to read. And I say I really recommend anybody goes to your site. It's walktheborder.com, isn't it? Walktheborder.com.
Yes,
and
yes,
it's
please.
a really good blog, and I thoroughly recommend people read it. Now you mentioned earlier on about landowners, and I know that you have to go through quite substantial stretches of private land. How were you able to gain access?
Oh, that was a challenging part of our trip. The first 3 states, California, Arizona, New Mexico, have a lot of public land, so it wasn't as much of an issue, although we had a couple times where we had to get permission.
Right.
But Texas is entirely private land, which is not something we knew before this trip, and now we're well acquainted with it.
Entirely?
Yeah.
Wow.
There's almost no public land in Texas. There's a handful of national and state parks, and that's pretty much it.
Wow.
So with Texas, that was a big challenge, is getting permission. We were very specific about not wanting to do any trespassing.
Right.
That was not our goal with this trip. We wanted to be peaceful and to not be in anyone's way. So we did contact landowners to see if we could get permission. Usually when we were close to their property, and we relied a lot on word of mouth. So if we kind of got someone's permission, they generally would help us down the line and call their neighbors and get their neighbors to give us permission as well. And people were really, really nice. We almost never had people say no to us. So what
if they did say no? Did you have to go round just literally have to go round? Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. So that's a big detour then, isn't it? I presume.
Absolutely. Yeah, we only had that actually happen once. And unfortunately it was a 300,000 acre chunk of land. Yeah, exactly. It was a foundation who owned it, and close to the start of the CDT actually. And we contacted like 10 different people, and they all said no hiking. We don't want hikers on our property. And we were heartbroken and had to figure out some major rearranging of our logistics. So
how receptive were the individual landowners in fact, everybody you spoke to, to your project?
Except for this one exception, everyone was just immediately let us onto their property, opened their gates to us. I started telling you a story the other day about, we had one time.
You mean our first recording?
Yeah, our first recording. Claire and I came to a gate. We had permission from all the landowners so far. We came to a gate that we finally was kind of the end of the line. We did not have permission to go through this gate. And it had a bunch of no trespassing signs on it. So Claire and I were like, oh, this is where our luck runs out. This is the end. And so we set up camp, gave up for the moment. And within 5-10 minutes, a guy pulled up in his vehicle to unlock his gate, the landowner. And I sprung out of the bushes and bombarded him and said, hey, we're doing such and such. We're walking the border of Mexico. And is there any chance we can walk across your property? And he was very alarmed. He later told me that he was actually going to the back of his truck to get a gun out.
Of course he was.
Yeah, but when he kind of caught wind of what we were doing, I told him, Claire is over there, and Claire's another woman. She comes out. So we were not very scary. We weren't very alarming. And he immediately was like, oh, absolutely. Definitely. Please come through my property. You'll love it. And he told us about this and that, invited us to get water at his house. It was perfect. It made our day.
I'm sure it did.
I think that's a part that isn't necessarily in my stereotype of, a Texan rancher, and that I was interested to learn about is that a lot of them have a pretty strong connection to the land that they're in. They're, gamesmen, they hunt, they walk their lands. And so people walking and wanting to enjoy the aesthetic of their land is not a concept that's strange or foreign to a lot of
That's
them.
interesting. That is interesting, actually, yeah. Now, you probably went into this project with preconceived notions of what border and life around the border was like. Did some of those preconceived notions change along the way, or did you have some of your not biases, but your thoughts? Did you have them confirmed, or were many of those thoughts overturned on the way?
Oh, so many overturned. Yeah, I could list all the things that changed in my mind, all the preconceived notions that changed. Uh, oh gosh, like Claire just said, ranchers was a huge one. Just how much generosity they had. Border Patrol actually also changed. We changed our minds about Border Patrol. I think going into this, we were scared of maybe who they are, government agency, and we're going to be in pretty remote areas and probably only see them. We were a little scared of that, but they, they were very inoffensive. They always asked us if we needed water. Our meetings were always very short, concise, but they didn't care that we were crossing, using their roads, really. They didn't mind that we were interfering with their work a little bit, and we definitely had fears about all that, but they were, very gracious. Sometimes they would talk to us longer than that even. Also, a lot of the border towns, I think went into this thinking that, is there even anything on the border? Like, we know there are towns, but, like, there can't be that much there. And it was really interesting to see how vibrant a lot of those communities were. They also frequently they're sister cities. So there's a city right over the border in Mexico, and then there's the city in the States, and they work together often. So a lot of the workers in Mexico come across for the day, or there's a U.S. factory right across the border, maybe for cheap labor, but still, those factories are in Mexico, and then maybe the parts are sent off once they get into the States. So there's a lot of trade and commerce that's cross-border there. And that was really fascinating to see. It was fascinating to see how much money is going through that area. Maybe it's not always staying directly in those towns. Sometimes the towns were a little more shabby, even despite there being like wonderful communities. And so sometimes you would feel like the money wasn't necessarily staying there, it was going elsewhere. But all that was really fascinating, very different than what I expected.
I'm sure.
I would say
Claire can, go on, there's lots.
I would just say it's sort of the most important stereotype, maybe not most important, but one of the main ones that was very relevant to our own fears was we were worried about our safety, and there are definitely, there is smuggling happening at the border. As far as I know, there are people crossing, but I think the main myth that was busted for us is that people wanted to. There's actually very little violence between on American soil. The Mexican side is really different, and there is a lot of violence. But as far as people crossing and bringing violence with them, that was not something we experienced, and we had a rule to not get in anyone's way. And as long as we were doing that, we felt for the most part pretty safe. And people were not, like I said, were really not interested in hurting us. At least that's how we felt.
Well, that's good to know, because you're right. I would have suspected it would have been quite dangerous down there. And we've talked about it more as a project than a hike, because your project was to learn about the border, and I'm sure you've done that. Just for a moment, let's talk about it as a hike. When I saw some of the earlier posts, there seemed to be a heck of a lot of walking along hot, dusty roads. Does it measure up as a hike for other people, or was this something, would you not have done this just as a hike?
Yeah. I mean, that also could go into one of the things that we changed our minds about. I think we did not, we weren't too idealistic going into this. We were kind of like, how beautiful can it be down there? And turns out it was gorgeous. Some of the prettier places I think I've been to in the States, here and there. I really enjoyed it as a hike. Having said that, though, the last part of Texas was all along a highway, and that definitely our enthusiasm trailed off there.
That probably speaks to my next question, which was you got to the Gulf of Mexico on May the 12th this year, and your hike was over. What did it feel? The same feeling you got from your other hikes? Did you feel that was it relief you'd finished, or what was it? What were you feeling like when it was over?
For me and for Tenny, I think because we discussed it, it was really different from other hikes, because when you finish another hike, there's this elation. There's also sadness that it's over. There's a lot of emotions, but the hike itself feels very much at an end. You've reached your goal. And for this hike, sort of the closer we got, the more we felt like it wasn't really about the walking and the physical hiking that was important. And it felt not frivolous by the end, the walking part, because it's such an important vehicle for seeing places and moving. But but it didn't feel like it was over. I mean, our engagement with these issues, with the border, with our country, they're very much not over. So the actual finishing of the hike had very little to do with our feeling of commitment to this project. And
sure.
Yeah.
And I think when we do a hike, well, any path, we'd all have takeaways from our experiences, and yours for this path would probably sort of tinge with something different. What was there anything you specifically took away from this journey? Was it other than knowledge?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things, maybe that I let go of rather than took away, was fear. And that felt like maybe one of the most important things that both Claire and I could do. Just let go some of this fear that we had felt about the border, felt so much of the way. And so we could not let that fear keep us from disrespecting people who live there, disrespecting an entire group of people.
Sure.
And I think in the future, that will help us kind of have a little more clarity and maybe work on these issues coming from a different place in our lives. Just less fear.
Would you like it to be? Would you like it to be more of not a formal trail, but a recognised trail, if you know what I mean? And the reason I say that is because you appear to have, and I've read a bit more of your blog since we last spoke, and you appear to have really put a lot of thought and effort into what you got out of it. And I wonder whether making it a formalized trail would make it, more educational for everybody.
I think that's a hard one to. I don't necessarily feel like I do want that. At least right now, it feels. We were very conscious moving through this area that we were white and that we're English speaking and American citizens, and so we had a safety in a way moving through that area. I don't think everyone would have that safety. I also don't. The ranchers were very generous to us with the use of their land, but I don't think it would be possible to make any kind of regular path through their property. Because it is invasive and it is intrusive, and we were really deliberate about not wanting to be that. And I worry that encouraging a bunch of other people to do that would just be intrusive and would disrupt the lives of the people that are living there.
We're talking AT now, aren't we? Obviously, you don't expect a Texas private ranch to turn into a party time like it can be on the AT. But you know what? I think this is such an interesting project, and now I've mentioned the website again, walktheborder.com. Really, I think it has such an interesting and well written journal that I strongly recommend people to go to see it. And I really thank you guys for taking the time out 3 times now. to speak. This is the first time we've actually completed it, so you hadn't heard those later questions, so that's a good thing. But thanks for taking the time out to do this. I think it's a valuable thing you did, and I'm so glad that you took the time to come and talk to us.
Well, thank you. The Appalachian Trail community is a huge part of our lives, so we're really happy to be here.
Oh yeah, foundation of my life, definitely.
Appreciate it. So thank you, ladies. Take it easy, and I'll speak to you again sometime.
Thank
All right,
you.
take care.
Cheers.
Bye.
Wasn't that a great, really different story? There are another couple of fearless women, the type I met so often on the trail in 2014. I hope and I expect to meet many more next year. They went to learn and they had a lot of their preconceived ideas turned upside down. Wouldn't it be nice if we were all open to changing the way we look at things when we're confronted by the facts? And even if this wasn't a formal trail, isn't it good to know that hikers are hikers wherever they are and that people just like being kind to them? As I said, I can't recommend their blog highly enough. You can find it at walktheborder.com. That's walktheborder.com. Now, the last 5 chats that I had at the Outdoor Gear Summer Market in Denver. Some of these are pretty short, so I've lumped the last lot together as a bunch. First up, I spoke with Andrew Seidel of 4 Points, a company that sells delicious bars to hikers. Here's Andrew. Okay, I'm here with Andrew from 4 Points. He's got some energy bars. He wants to tell you all about it.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. So 4 Points Energy Bars is a local Denver company, and we started about 3 years ago, 2.5, 3 years ago, and sold our first bar. And we really pride ourselves on the all-natural, slow-burning energy, macro-rich ingredients that we use. So it gives you 3 to 4 hours of sustained energy as opposed to the spike and the crash.
I'll tell you if that works, by the way. I've just had some of it.
And that you'll be able to get through the show.
I'll be back at lunchtime.
There you go. It lasts a few hours till lunchtime. So we are the only bar that uses both plums and figs. So that gives us the low glycemic, and that helps to avoid those spikes and crashes. So you're really getting that sustained energy.
Okay, and where can people get the bar?
So people can order through our website, 4pointsbar.com, and Amazon. We're also in all of the Colorado and Utah REI stores. Right. We're moving into a handful more nationally, and we're also in the Safeway stores in Colorado, as well as moving into natural grocers.
Now, we've already talked about, before we started recording, that it costs a little bit more than some of the other bars, so tell us what it costs.
It does. So retail is $3 a bar, and our bar is 2.5 ounces, which is about 1 to 1.5 times larger than the average bar on the market. Right. So it is that higher price point.
Yeah.
So that's the justification.
And I just had the Trailhead gingerbread, and I can confirm it was really good. So I really enjoyed it.
That is one of our newest flavors: Trailhead gingerbread and the Colorado Trail chocolate peanut. Those are our 2 newest ones, and the gingerbread is great in the morning with coffee and gets you sort of started for the day.
Yeah, cool. Well, good luck for it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for talking to us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Steve.
These were really delicious and, as he said, full of good stuff. You can find out more at 4pointsbar.com. And at $3 a bar for 2.5 ounces of goodness, that doesn't sound too bad to me, especially when you consider a $5 cup of coffee from Starbucks. Next up was Brandon Rodriguez of BrownMed with the Spark, a knee support that combines kinesiology taping with compression. Now, this isn't out yet, but it will be available in about a month at the mid to end of October, or perhaps early November. Here's Brandon. Right, I'm here with Brandon Rodriguez from BrownMed, and I've got a problem with my knee, and I know I've got a problem with my knee. And Brandon's got this product which felt good on, so he's going to tell you all about it.
Absolutely. So Spark is the latest brand for BrownMed. We have 13 brands total. Spark is the combination of kinesiology taping along with compression. So we've married the two technologies together in one simple to use knee sleeve. So we have mimicked the taping pattern. So if you went to a kinesiologist and had your knee taped, it would be the same way that we have used this PU banding on the compression gear.
Now, how can we describe this? It looks like a crisscross pattern in the front. You pull this thing up, there are some points at which it's meant to touch the side of your knee.
Absolutely.
And I tried it out, and the release on my knee was much better straight away. I could tell that already. So how does it actually work? What's it actually doing to you?
You want to keep neutral. So you want your ligaments, everything to be neutral. So what we're doing is we're using the anchor points on your knee to keep everything compact and compressed in a neutral position. So when you are in motion, it'll help bring everything back to that neutral position.
So is there an educational component in teaching people how to use it properly? Do you Do you have videos and things like that?
We do. Yeah, you can find them on brownmed.com /Spark.
Okay. And where can you get it? And when can you get it?
So it's brand new. We are launching October 15th with Spark. You can buy it online right away on the brownmed.com website.
From October the 15th?
From October 15th
Right.
on. And then that's why we're here. We're looking for greater distribution of the product and the brand.
So far, you literally brought it first time to the show then?
First time to the show, yeah, absolutely.
Well, that felt good. Straight away. I mean, I haven't tried it on hiking, obviously. It's the downhill hiking that really got me on my knees, so I need to think about that and get that sorted out.
Absolutely.
And if people want to know more about it, can they contact you?
Absolutely, yeah. They can contact BrownMed directly.
Yeah.
Just go to brownmed.com and you'll have our customer service hotline. We'd love to answer questions.
Cool. Appreciate it. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Now pay attention. Brandon said that it was at brownmed.com /Spark. I mean, it should be /Spark, but it's not even there yet. Brandon told me about it when I called him, and it should be up on their site soon. And the support will be available sometime towards the end of October, early November. He kindly sent me a demo version, and I'm going to be trying it out on the Camino, and I will report back to you, by which time it should be available to the public. Nicole Farah of Teva not only taught me the correct way to pronounce Teva, she introduced a new shoe. I did consider hiking the Camino in Teva sandals, but went with the shoe instead. Here's Nicole. Okay, I'm here with Nicole Farah.
Yes.
Okay, of Teva. Not Teva. And as I've just decided, if I'm going to do the Camino, I need an open sandal. I'm going to go with the Teva. And she's already told me I should buy
Either the Hurricane XLT2 or the Strata, which has a Vibram outsole.
Okay, let's go for one of those, but we're not going to talk about that right now. She's going to tell us about something else upcoming next year.
So next year we're going to be launching our GC100 collection. That's going to be celebrating the 100th year anniversary of the Grand Canyon as a national park.
Wow.
We're going to be coming out with a couple new styles. They're going to be called the Boomerang Webbing. So our Boomerang Webbing is kind of reminiscent of when we were founded in 1984. Celebrating kind of our Grand Canyon style. Our webbing is going to be 100% recycled polyester for the GC100 Boomerang. We're going to have a Hurricane XLT2. These are both men's and women's styles. And we're going to have an XLT2 Alp and our original sandal, as well as our original our original universals.
And what do these come up at? What sort of price are they going to come up on market at?
They are going to come, I'm not sure exactly on pricing.
No worries.
But I can check with one of our.
And that comes out when?
In February of next year.
Okay, so tell us then, why do people want to walk in Teva sandals? Not necessarily Teva sandals generally, especially for longer hikes. So I've saw a number of people hiking the Appalachian Trail with sandals.
Teva's going to keep you a little bit more comfortable because we do have our loops just on those non-pressure points of the foot.
Right.
And we have our hook and loop styling, which is just easy strap in, strap out.
Yeah.
We're going to be water friendly, so it's not going to rub up against you in a bad way if you get them wet.
Sure. Why wouldn't it?
Why wouldn't they?
Yeah, why would they not?
Why would they not rub up against you?
Because wet is wet,
Wet is wet. However, our polyester webbing is going to be water friendly, so it's not going to get dried out and it's not going to crust up kind of like other sandals might.
Yeah, makes sense.
So that's just, they're going to just be a little bit
I'm here to ask the idiot questions.
Sure,
so,
that's okay. I'm not on the product side necessarily, just on PR. So if you want to get into the material side of things,
it'd be totally over my head. It's just, comfort is the thing. Comfort is the thing that people really want.
Comfort is the main thing. That's our main goal, is to keep everybody comfortable on their journeys and the outdoors.
Okay, so these will be coming out next February, you say?
Yep.
Look out for it on Teva, as opposed to Teva, as I've been calling it all my life. Teva.com, which just shows my utter ignorance. Okay, but thanks very much for talking to me. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. I tried on a few of these sandals, and they are definitely comfy, though I couldn't quite pull the trigger on hiking in sandals. The amount of times I stubbed my toes on the AT kept coming back to haunt me while I was considering it. Maybe next time. Mind you, I did snap up a pair of $20 flip-flops, and I don't think I've taken them off since. Now, Kent Hernandez of Buckle Gear and Bad Raccoon is one of those blokes whose personality just draws you in. I didn't even know what he was selling at first, but he was such a nice bloke, I just started interviewing him. Here's Kent. Okay, I'm on with Kent Hernandez of two companies, Buckle Gear and Bad Raccoon.
That's right.
Raccoon, sorry.
Bad Raccoon Co.
Hi Kent, how are you?
I'm doing well today. How are you doing, Steve?
Not too bad, thanks. I was just going past and you pulled me into the store.
That's right, reeled you in.
That's right, yeah. And you've got an interesting product. I particularly like this one up here. Could you tell us describe it? Remember, this is audio.
Yeah, so this is a gear hanger. It's a 9-foot nylon strap. It doesn't weigh very much, and it has a side squeeze buckle at the end. And on the strap, you have what we call gear clips that are quick connect clips that can come on and off the strap, and you can adjust it, move it up and down the strap to hang it off of your backpack while you're hiking, wrap it around a tree once you get to camp. Or we have a hiker on the Appalachian Trail named Carl Patterson. How you doing, Carl? And he will take his gear hanger and mount it between his two trekking poles once he gets to camp at night, help dry his clothes off.
That's pretty cool because I had a sort of clothesline which also hung my food at night, obviously, and that never really worked terribly well for me. Looking at your, and once again, this is audio, not video, but looking at the picture of how this is set up, this is literally goes round a tree, and these clips just come off it, and you can hang whatever you like off it, and that makes a lot of sense to me.
Absolutely, and the clips are interchangeable, so you can take the clip off of this strap. You can clip it onto your belt if you're wearing a 1-inch belt,
yeah.
Which most adventure pants are 1-inch belt.
Yeah.
You can also clip it onto your bag, so there's different ways to use the product to whatever suits your needs for whatever environment you're in.
And it's quite light as well, really, for a 9-foot belt. How much does it weigh?
Well, the 9-foot one is it's around 7 to 8 ounces, maybe a little bit less. But the one we put on the trail a lot of times is 4 foot or so.
Yeah.
And we also can make it out of a lighter weight material if you're that much of an ultralight hiker and you don't want
and some are.
No, some definitely are. We have different variations that we can work with. But that's the nice thing too, is you can take the gear clips off.
Yeah.
So if you only want to take 2 clips with you and you want that extra half ounce of weight off, you can do that. One of those dump boxes
Cool.
or drop boxes on the trail.
Now you got another product, this is your Bad Raccoon one, isn't it?
Yeah. So Bad Raccoon Company is handkerchief manufacturer, and we specialize in custom handkerchiefs that are to be carried in your pocket instead of Kleenex or tissues. Grandpa was right back in the day carrying that pocket square around, and it's kind of a trend that needs to come back. It's environmentally friendly. It's carry more while carrying less. If you're out on the trail and you have a hank in your pocket, you need to blow your nose, wipe before it off, go ahead and do that. You come to a stream, rinse it off.
Good to go. And is it dry fairly quickly?
They dry fairly quickly. These are all cotton, they do. We do have one that we call more of like a runner's hank, and that's one's made more polyester, and that dries faster. And then we're trying to get into more versatile fabrics so that people among all walks of life have an option of, I want to use a handkerchief for, to go to a wedding or to go hiking.
Funnily enough, it was one of the things that I had a problem with. I would buy these packs of tissues, and you accumulate just snotty tissues in your pocket, don't you?
You do, and you also,
which is horrible.
I've noticed too, I buy those little packs of tissues, and I won't use the full pack before I lose it or something, or before it ends up at the bottom of my bag.
Yeah.
And then I'm accumulating packs of tissues that only have 1 or 2 left in them.
I quite agree. Okay, well, thanks for telling us about it. Appreciate it.
No problem, Steve. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Cheers.
Cheers.
How old school. A handkerchief. I thought it was a nice throwback to the past. And that gear hanger is really useful. Check out bucklegear.com for the hanging straps and badraccoonco.com for the handkerchiefs. Make sure you stay away from badraccoon.com because you're going to end up at a site that tells you way more than you're ever going to want to know about raccoons, good and bad. I must admit, I found it a fascinating way to spend a few minutes. Last up, I wanted to thank Tim Richards of Oboes, as Oboes were a big supporter of Bruce Mattson on one of our other shows, Returning to Katahdin. They even made Bruce an ambassador. I'm a big fan of Oboes, and I wear Oboes boots. I'm not an ambassador. Maybe I should be. Here's Tim. Okay, I'm on with Tim Richards, who's the sales rep for Oboes in California. Where?
California, Nevada, Arizona, and Hawaii.
And I'm here because one of the reasons I'm here is because personally I have Oboes boots, and also Oboes sponsor, or Bruce Mattson on our other show, Returning to Katahdin, he's an ambassador for Oboes. So firstly, thank you for that. Tell us a bit about Oboes and what's perhaps in the future and this great thing about planting trees.
Well, Oboes was founded by some guys who had a lot of footwear industry experience, who found themselves looking for work and thought, instead of going to work for another manufacturer, let's do our own thing. And let's base it on 3 clear principles. Really good fit, great quality, and let's be really fun to work with.
Right, yeah.
3 easy things to get your head around. They
come up with a funny name as well. Oboes, what's that all about?
Right, so when they thought about where they wanted to live and work, they thought about Bozeman, Montana being a place that inspires them, and a place where they'd like to live, and a place where there might be a trail right across the street from the global headquarters.
So that really was a fun thing.
Yeah, there's 18 million acres of awesomeness around western Montana that inspires them to build great trail footwear. And then they also wanted to do something to give back to Mother Earth and be green and sustainable, and that's the One More Tree initiative, which plants a tree for every pair of shoes that we make.
Right.
And that's primarily through an organization called Trees for the Future, who operate primarily in sub-Saharan Africa, where they have great need for soil erosion mitigation, or for timber, or for food, or for shade. Yeah. And they have a better than 90% success rate on their plantings, which is
how many trees have you planted so far? Which is quite an impressive number.
So we're a little over 10 years into it, and at the end of last month, we hit 1.9 million trees planted.
That's something.
And we also do One More Tree events within communities here in the United States, where we'll team up with retailers on a day or an evening, and we'll either give native species saplings away to people who can commit to caring for them, or we'll plant trees within communities, or we'll commit to planting a tree for every pair that someone tries on the night.
Yeah.
Just sort of as a good causal marketing thing.
So what sort of... I'm looking around now. We've got all left-foot shoes are all right. I think they're all left-foot shoes, are they? Because have you got many pairs here? You probably haven't got many pairs of shoes.
Well, we've got pairs between the different boots.
All right. So you got boots, you got sandals.
Boots, sandals, and shoes, and we're true to the trail. Across the board is what we focus on.
And is there a trend going one way or the other? I had boots. I saw very few boots when I was hiking in 2014, funnily enough. I saw mainly shoes.
Yeah, in the U.S., we've gone lighter weight and lower. Less mid-height and calf-height boots. More breathable product. Lighter weight as well.
Yeah.
Unlike Europe and the Alps, where you're seeing day hikers stomping around in $400 and $500 mountaineering boots.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, we're in sneakers, and many times just really runners that are dressed up to look like outdoor shoes.
That's really my question. Is that? And I'm sure you must have scientists somewhere involved in the process. Is there? Is there a recommended or an optimal way to have a shoe, or is it just simply what fits you or what suits you?
Well, the shoe that fits you is always going to be the best shoe for you. It's got to fit, or you're going to have problems. But it's also possible to find a shoe that will do the things that you need it to do for you based on your end-use intentions. Are you going to be on really rugged terrain? Are you going to be carrying a heavy pack?
On a long distance hike you are.
Are you going for longer distances? Depending on what your end use needs are, we'll have a shoe to.
So you tell me then. You tell me if you were going, and we focus a lot on through hiking the Appalachian Trail. So let's say that.
Yeah.
What would you say is likely to be the best performer for you over a period of 2,000 miles? Over 6 months.
We have a style called the Sawtooth, which we've built a franchise around. So me being in California, I can speak to the PCT really well.
Oh, right, okay.
Similar to the Appalachian Trail, although maybe a little rougher. And a little longer, I think. We're 2,700 miles.
About 2,700, yeah.
And I've spoken to a woman recently who completed the trail in 3 pairs of Sawtooths.
All right.
So they took her between 800 and 900 miles per pair.
Right.
And that's a shoe that retails for $110. It's fairly well supportive, but most importantly, it's really comfortable, fits really well, and lasts quite a long time relative to other footwear that's on the market that's popular on the trail today.
But you don't try to veer anybody boot, shoe. It's whatever suits the person.
That's really a personal preference. Yeah, I mean, I can speak to the benefits of both for someone who doesn't know. And there are lots of people on those long trails who don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. So tell me.
Sure.
So what? I worried more about my ankles than I needed to because my ankles were fine when I did it before. So you tell me. So
and it's somewhat of a myth that a tall ankle boot is going to give you more support for.
I was relying upon it.
Yeah, maybe a set of trekking poles is a really good thing to have. But we build super stable bottoms on our shoes so that they tend not to roll quite as easily as some other shoes. Right. We give you great stone and bruise protection on all of our shoes throughout the line. And a tall boot is going to give you better protection from gravel and dirt dumping in through the top of it.
I'm sure.
It's going to be a little more waterproof because of the higher collar, and it's going to be a little warmer, both by virtue of the height of the collar and the membrane that's built into it that's giving you your waterproofness.
But as you go over 3 seasons, you could very well have a different type of shoe for each season, couldn't you, really?
Oh, sure.
It may make sense, It may make sense to actually change those up.
A lot of people do. People are very specific with the type of footwear that they're going to use for...
And often for no real reason.
Oftentimes because it's an emotional connection to a color they like. Yeah. Color many times is the first reason anyone will pick one shoe over the other, and it's not exclusive to either gender either. I've seen it both ways.
I'm sure. Well, look, I appreciate oboes. I really enjoy them, and thanks for helping out Bruce on his journey this year as well.
Right on, Bruce, and thank you, Steve.
Thanks a lot. So in much the same way as the previous company, do not go to oboes.com. I don't even know what language it's in. It looks Greek to me. No, Oboes, the footwear company, is at obosfootwear.com. So they were the last of my interviews at the Denver show. I really enjoyed bringing these to you, and I hope that you learned something from them. Now, lastly, it's day 14 of the year we seize the day with Colin and Ellie, or more accurately, me and my niece, Laura. I'll see you next week. Chapter 15, Day 14. Burgos do Castro Heriz.
Ellie, tread carefully. The team is back together again, fitter, stronger, and far more fashionable than before. Colin's Defence Against Blisters is a brand new, state-of-the-art, ultra-light pair of Jesus sandals with socks. They keep me amused for the first hour of the day. They're fantastic. After 2 days of rest, he's out of the gates like a racehorse. I'm not. Physically, I'm still not doing well. An hour later, the sun is up, the wind is warm, the surrounding land consists of vacant fields of recently cropped wheat, and there is nothing ahead but a burnt horizon. We have arrived in the Meseta. The Meseta is a high band of featureless land, a plateau spanning the length of the country north to south. It's 200 kilometres across and roughly stretches between Burgos and Lyon. Due to the harsh conditions and flat terrain, the region is predominantly used for growing wheat and little else. The surrounding towns are few and far between, and are typically small, poor, working-class villages with limited facilities, if any at all. We've been warned of the Meseta. Urban myths about its strange nature are rampant. Stories of people entering sane and coming out crackers, or venturing in and never being seen again. Many pilgrims choose to bus through, and there's good reason to be concerned. Colin tells me this is where Shirley MacLaine lost the last of her marbles. He comforts me with the assurance that she had a head start on both of us. We'll be fine. By afternoon, the punishing heat, shadeless land and uninviting vistas are taking their toll, and our patience is wearing thin. This is the first day of this 7-day stretch, and already it's become apparent that the key to keeping the peace will be silence.
Colin, serial killer. Today, for the first time since we started, it doesn't hurt to walk. These sandals have changed my life. They are the Anthony Robbins of footwear. And I've finally figured out how to work the straps on my pack so that the 10 kilos is sitting on my hips instead of my shoulders. I'm walking without pain, as wild and crazy an idea as this seemed when we started. Which is good, because we are about to walk across the Pilgrim's Wild West, the notorious Meseta, a bleak, wheat-infested tableland that occupies 40% of the country and most of Castile y Leon. We follow a trail through a green valley where sugar beet wilts in the sun. Then we reach a crest, and from the brow of the hill we see an endless panorama of wheat. Lots of it. Wheat, wheat, more wheat. We've hardly taken a few strides into the Meseta, and I'm sick to death of wheat. I soon realised that the Meseta is in itself like a meditation. Left with a flat horizon, silence and nothing to do but walk in the wheat heat, I discover that my thoughts are endlessly repetitive and probably futile. If we are what we think, what does that make me? What are we doing here, I ask Ellie, and I can see that she is not sure anymore either. But she is owned by the physical challenge of doing this. Her knee wobbles and swirls. A hematoma is growing on the back of her calf muscle like that thing that crawled out of John Hurt's stomach in Alien. And she has tendinitis in both feet, but still the damn girl keeps walking, except when she stops to pee, which is every 7 minutes and 43 seconds by my watch. She is also having trouble with her nose, and I feel I should share this with you as she's probably too shy. The heat has given Ellie nosebleeds. It's close to 40 degrees. She talks to walking with toilet paper stuffed up each nostril. It is a touching and poignant sight, and not at all confronting, though a Spaniard in a beret outside Castro Jerez saw her and fell off his bike, terrified. Some people just scare easily. Her eyesight is something else. Look at that great castle, she says, pointing to a hay bale on the crest of a hill. Look at that amazing monastery, she says a few minutes later, pointing to a pig farm. I hate to disillusion her sometimes. Okay, so what if the things she sees aren't really there? Does it matter? If she sees castles and monasteries and enjoys them, who cares? Her world is far more interesting than the real one. My mind then leaps to another perspective. If the things we see are better than what is really there, are we wrong to cure crazy people? I'm sure their world is saner than my world, which is just full of wheat. I'm ready to murder someone if they piss me off. Will that make me a serial killer? Or just as gluten intolerant as you can possibly get?
Ellie, hot-footing into Castrodris. 19 kilometres on, in Hernandez, Colin is set to explode and I'm willing him to. Anything to stem the boredom. We stagger into a bar, the cold hits my skin like a bucket of iced water. Colin orders a Coke and sits down. He has passed on a beer. It's worse than I thought. I order a Coke Light and the woman behind the bar cracks a joke about my height to a guy stuck to a stool at the end of the bar. Mue, something or other. She gestures with her hands. The Spanish population is not a tall race of people. Vertically challenged, let's say. But Hernandez must be a town of particularly little people. Before handing across my change, the woman calls her 3 children from the residence in the back. They come running out to marvel at the 50-foot woman. Soon the lady's sister arrives at the bar and she too joins in. Better still, she's noticed my feet. Admittedly, my feet are uniquely large for a woman of my build, with cumbersome size 12 men's hiking boots strapped to the end of spaghetti legs. My feet look as large as a pair of oversized clown shoes. It's fun for all, but the fuss irks Krusty even more. He's overwalking and he's obviously over me for dragging him here. Today he blames me for the Camino, but I'm surprised it's taken him this long. We move on. Entering Castrodris, the skin on our arms and necks is burnt red from the ruthless heat. But the sun isn't the worst of it. The last 10 kilometres we spend walking on asphalt so hot it's like a fry pan, radiating heat beneath our feet. My socks feel as though they've been doused in kerosene and set alight. It is by far the hottest, driest, hardest day we've walked, and the only day of the Camino that I actually stop mid-stride and can't go on. All I remember about the ancient town is that Cole found me slumped on my side against a shadowed wall in a narrow cobbled street and carried both my pack and me back to the Alberg. All I think about now when I recall that day is that was the day my left foot wore straight through all 3 layers of fabric and sponge padding on the back of my size 12 boot, fusing my sock to the plastic heel cup. I lift the sock and my boot comes with it. Don't tell me I too need Jesus sandals.
Colin, suffocating in silence. The Alberg is cool and dark, an old stone building in a dry garden with a single gnarled olive tree. We both collapse in our bunks in the cellar-like dormitory to wonder privately what the hell we are doing here. We sleep. It's evening when we wake up. The light has softened and swallows swoop and dive around the Romanesque bell towers of the church, and the harsh and unforgiving town looks friendlier, more like a picture postcard and less like a vision of hell. The yellow light from the bodega spills onto the cobbled square. A cool wind ushers the heat from the plaza. The old people line up like bowling pins on a low wall next to the children's playground. The women are all in black with stockings as thick as Hessian bags. The old men, their faces brown and gnarled as saddlebags, clutch walking sticks in arthritic fingers. They come here every sunset, waiting for the Grim Reaper to send one of them a curveball they can't dodge. 20 old people lined up on a wall, if one Grim Reaper should accidentally call. I watch them silhouetted against the yellow haze of the meseta on the plains below the town. It's like a tableau of the cycle of life. Children laughing on swings, their grandparents looking on, wistful and proud. And there, in the distance with the red dipping of the sun, is tomorrow. There's something poignant about the village square in Mediterranean life. The people are old, but they are not lonely, not shut away at home. They see each other, perhaps as they have since school days, when their grandmothers and grandfathers watched them as they played in this same dusty plaza. As I ponder them in their companionable silence, I'm hit by a wave of loneliness so intense I almost double over as if kicked in the balls. This pain is too much. What the is going on? The ache sits here, right under the solar plexus, a fur ball of black regret and bewilderment. How could she say things like that to me and not mean it? I've come to hate being me, out here in this barrel vault of haze and blistered sky, but I have nothing to do here except sit with myself. There's nowhere among all this wheat stubble to hide. I'm stalked by a dead wife and a lover who has tortured me with love passionately bestowed and then snatched away. I am furious and frustrated by my own helplessness in the face of it. I didn't expect to discover that here. This walk was supposed to be a way to ease the ache and help get Ellie where she knows she needs to go, to fulfill her destiny. How do I play the role she expects of me in this splintered state? I'm lost for words, mute with feelings I do not understand and so cannot explain. I can't trust what might come out of my mouth if I try.